Hello and welcome to Law Candor, the podcast wholly devoted to pursuing the legal technology revolution. I'm Bill Mariano here with my co-host Rob Hellewell. Welcome to you all. Thanks for joining. Hey Rob, what's up, buddy?
Hello.
So this is our first podcast, and I think because it's our first podcast, we should probably assume that more than just my mother and your mother are listening, and maybe give a little background on ourselves. I'll go first. I've been in the industry for, a million years. Back in 2005, I got involved. Before that, I was a pretty terrible lawyer. And what I mean by that was I was locked in an office with no windows, writing the same brief over and over and over and over again. Moved into e-discovery, about in 2005. And that's where I met up with you. And man, it's been 15, 14 long years together.
It's crazy how long it's been. Yeah, I'm Rob Hellewell, and my background is similar to Bill's. Started my career in a traditional law firm, doing a lot of the same stuff. Kind of caught that e-discovery revolution right as it was starting. In fact, I can even remember the first time we were sitting with a client, and they said, "Hey, do we need to collect email?" I mean, it's hard to believe it's been that long. But yeah, joined a startup e-discovery company and have been, on the provider side it's been 17 years now, and working with Bill for most of that. So it's been a long, strange trip.
I can't wait till we get to the point where we can sort of invent time travel and go back to the times when we were charging like $3,500 per gig. Those were the days.
Those were wonderful days.
They really were. I hate to be biased here, but I'm all for going back to that, especially now that clients are routinely collecting multiple terabytes of data. So, all right. Well, with that, I think we should do the first phase of this of this podcast. We've broken it up into two spots. We're going to have a guest speaker on every one of them. But the first one we're going to do, we're going to start out by going through the news in a segment that we call
Sightings of Radical Brilliance.
As that name implies, is the part of the show where we bring to you the latest of noteworthy innovation and acts of sheer genius, not necessarily related to our industry, but it could be just about anything.
We both love technology, so I think it's a good place to start. And I think for this one, we've got to talk about Elon Musk's brain-to-computer interface.
Yeah, this is crazy.
I mean, I love this guy. It's, just when, you've invented the world's coolest car, you're building rockets that go to Mars, and you just feel like you're not doing enough with your life.
These are all my old jobs, by the way. I just got into e-discovery by accident. That's really where I started. But yeah, he's clearly an underachiever.
It's crazy. So now, he has a new company. It's focused on building a computer chip that will actually be implanted into a person's brain that allows them to directly communicate with the computer.
And do you think he's going to have to pay a royalty to the Wachowskis for stealing this idea from the Matrix, or are we just going to have a bunch of Neos and Morpheuses running around now?
Well, exactly. And as long as they can get away from that awkward connector into the back of your neck, I'm all for it.
Yeah, the thought of dying in the Matrix and then passing out in my chair somewhere in real life is a little scary.
You'll be happy to know that I volunteered you for an early prototype of this system. The brain surgery part is still a little rough, but you're good to go.
I think I'm willing to take the risks so long as I can learn to fly an Apache helicopter in 30 seconds or less, and learn what do you learn, judo or jujitsu, whatever it was. If you can teach me that in 30 seconds, I've been wanting to play a guitar and learn a different language my whole life, and I don't have the patience for it. The only thing I could play is Stairway to Heaven. If you could teach me to play the guitar in 30 seconds, I'm all for the human trials.
I think, the question is, to try to relate it to the podcast a little bit, is like, what implication would this kind of technology have on the legal space? I mean, could you be arguing a brief and have sort of instant recall of, every case, that has ever been argued? Or, could we go to a client site and plug one of us into their network and, extract all relevant data? I mean, what do you think?
I mean, could you have the FTC or the DOJ plug in and decide right away whether or not a merger or an acquisition violated any antitrust issues? It's interesting, and as this what's a thought in Elon Musk's mind becomes reality within a 2-year period. So we'll see what happens. It's going to be a crazy time for this industry, for every industry, if this comes true.
I think it's true. Like I know for most of the use right now is, they're thinking about medical things. Like, you could actually, allow someone who's paralyzed to walk and have control over, the body again. I mean, it's pretty amazing stuff. I don't think we're going to see it progress to the law right away, but it would be interesting.
Yeah. Well, there is analytics and artificial intelligence in the law, and that's actually the title of this first podcast. The future is now. AI and analytics are here to stay. And joining us on the first podcast, we have someone near and dear to our hearts, someone that we've been working together with for a very long time. That's Karl Sobylak.
I've always suspected that Karl has one of these computer to brain implants already, but let's take his word for it.
Yeah, let's ask him straight up.
Let's go ahead and start with a question for Karl. Karl, can you just tell us a little bit about yourself?
Hey guys. So I'm Karl Sobylak. I'm a product owner here at Lighthouse, and I help create data-driven solutions to help our clients optimize their legal outcomes.
So if I got it, you're basically the king of data analytics at Lighthouse?
There you go. You got it.
So as the king then, it seems like data science and analytics have been making more progress, at least publicly in the news. You hear about it in all these different industries, whether it's financial services, big pharma, big tech, and you don't hear about it as much in the law. Why do you think that is?
Yes, it's a good question, and you do see a lot of news about AI and machine learning and deep learning every day. Things like progress in predictive medicine, things like self-driving cars, like Elon Musk is working on, but not as much as in legal. And I think one of the biggest challenges is trust. I feel like trust is a key aspect that a attorney or lawyer needs in their solutions in order to be able to use them proactively. And I think one of the challenges is that sometimes it's hard to trust data science because of the sort of underpinnings of it. And I think some of the fact that some of these solutions are not transparent in how they arrive at their results. If you look at things like self-driving cars, for example, if a self-driving car is going along the road, veers off, gets into an accident, it's hard to open up under the hood metaphorically of that car and ask the questions, why did you do that? And if you can't do that, how would a lawyer trust it on their legal cases?
Yeah, I guess that's true. It makes sense. I think the self-driving car analogy is good. I mean, it's something everyone can kind of relate to, but outside of kind of the theoretical, like how could this actually work, in the day-to-day life of a lawyer?
Yeah, so lawyers in the e-discovery world, they do use some technology consistently to a certain amount of success. Things like near dupe detection, email threading, certain clustering and predictive coding workflows. But there's new and interesting areas where these use cases for data analytics and data science are popping up regularly. Things like the automation of automated document creation, maybe contracts and so on, looking at legal workflows end to end, more broad based and holistically, looking to see how those workflows work and really optimizing to key facets of a e-discovery review project. Those are,
I kind of feel like maybe like this is part of the problem is that, a lot of people, when they think of AI and a lawyer, what they're really thinking of is that, somehow AI is going to replace that lawyer. But I think you're saying it's actually something different. It's more like it's enhancing the lawyer.
Yeah, AI is not, it's not that silver bullet. It's not going to, look to replace, everybody. What it's really trying to do is create better workflow. I could create the best AI on the planet, but if you can't actually implement it into a meaningful, predictive, scalable workflow, it's all for naught. And so, when I look at this problem, I'm not looking to say, how can we replace all these people with machines, but it's more, how could this machine help the people create a better workflow to solve their challenges? And that's how I look at it.
Yeah, I mean, and that's probably why there's so many skeptics out there that are still in the billable hour model, right? The lawyers that really think of this, as Rob just said, that as a replacement, rather than enhancing the value of what a lawyer can bring. Because you talk to some people and they say to you that AI and machine learning it's a little bit more limited in the law, that there's more nuance than there is in other industries where there's some stuff in black and white. And I don't know, what's your opinion on it? Do you think that's true?
Yeah, so I mean, there's a huge opportunity for learning or training machines to learn about legal and to do something with that content. I think if you look at sort of the e-discovery world, what we built up there over the years is a massive amount of training data for AI to learn from, and that's actually usually one of the biggest problem areas, right? When I refer to training data, I mean corporate clients have, hundreds, thousands of cases, hundreds of millions of documents with labels on them. And that becomes just a wealth of information for AI and machines to learn from. Also, legal documents tend to have their own sort of unique lexicon to them. So the words that are spoken or uttered or typed in this content all becomes unique properties of this data set that the AI can learn from to really go refine and attack these core problems. And I think it's a wealth of information to deal with, and a really great opportunity.
I think maybe that's part of the problem, Karl, is that, like I think most people, when they think of what a lawyer does, they're picturing that lawyer arguing a case in front of the Supreme Court. But that's really not what lawyers are doing every day, or at least what, most lawyers are doing. I think if people had more insight, they would see that, there's actually pretty routine things like just, reviewing documents, things like that.
That's right. I mean, it's always cool to imagine those court cases and, in court and trying them. But to get to that point is a ton of work, a ton of data, and a ton of spend. And we want to help create data, driven solutions and apply AI in a way that allows all those things to happen, quicker, faster, and more consistently. And so using AI, machine learning to look at that data set and help drive those workflows to better state, like that's the way that you can approach those problems.
And I know, Karl, you've spent time, hands-on with corporate legal departments, working on implementing, analytics-based solutions. What would you say is, what's the hardest thing that a legal department struggles with in making this real?
Yeah. So, it's getting off the block and realizing that, you don't have to, accomplish all of it all at once. And, it's really deciding how you're going to eat that elephant. It doesn't have to be a all or nothing shot. In fact, I think the best results that we've gotten are when we look to do it as a ramp, right? Let's take that data set that you have, like that large, large corporate data set that you have, look at it holistically, identify things that, may be of interest or new. Did you know that, certain communications sent on a certain time at a certain day between this type of employee always results in, potential relevant content. And if you could identify those facts, start mining that content out and presenting that in a way that can be digested by, the people who can use that information, and they can start putting that into action, then you can start building a ramp to more effective methods, more efficient methods to go create, the next level of analytic and the next level where you can start actually applying them. So it's the challenge is the starting point, and just getting off the blocks and hitting it, I think and just taking that step, I think is the biggest first, piece to look at.
I think that's a good point. Like, I would guess that most legal departments or most companies don't really understand that much about their data. I mean, if you think about it in the context of discovery, you have a case, a lot of work gets spent on classifying those documents, and then that database just kind of gets archived and just sits somewhere. Like there really, hasn't been a way to aggregate that information before. Is that something that you're working with? Is that, are companies finding that useful?
Yeah, I think the ability to look at a legal department's entire legal work or entire legal corpus is critical, and being able to mine those insights and present them back to end users is really a way to look at the data differently.
Even if you just look at the way, we typically see data in the e-discovery industry, clients are routinely, let's say, not thrilled with hosting bills. It doesn't matter what you're charging. The fact that they can't take their data down, you could be charging 50 cents a gig or $10 a gig or somewhere in between. The clients are not going to be thrilled about the fact that you're holding their data hostage, which is what they think it is in their mind. And they can't take it down, and they're paying a fee for it. But if you could actually operate and analyze their data, and operate on their data and analyze their data and run some algorithms across it to give them key insight, now all of a sudden the cost of hosting, there's some value to the fact that they have hosting, right? That they have to host the data with a vendor who can conduct some AI and machine learning on that data set.
Well, and I think that, like, if they're upset about their hosting bill, they're probably 10 times more upset with some of the legal bills, that come with reviewing that data. And I mean, I'm just going to guess that, once you aggregate data together, you're probably going to be able to see that, certain documents get reviewed all the time. and that, the document that was privileged in one case was also privileged in the next 7 cases, but got re-reviewed again and again and again. Like it just seems like that would add up at some point.
Or a document that was just like the document that was tagged privilege in another case. Sounds like Karl is saying that there might be trends in the data that could lead us to, if 7 of these 8 or 10 characteristics exist in a document, it's more likely to be priv or responsive or non-responsive or not priv. And that's where I think you could really, take that intelligence, make it actionable intelligence, and get a return on your investment. So, Karl, you are the man. Every time I talk to you, I learn a little bit something new. Want to thank you for joining us on the first podcast here today. And Rob, what do you think? What are 3 big takeaways from this today?
I mean, I guess I'd have to say, I think it's true that AI and machine learning, we've had a slow start in the law, but there's actually, pretty incredible potential. And I think we're definitely going to see that in the future. I guess for a second bullet point, I'd say, I think Karl's right. Most corporations are sitting on sort of a gold mine of data, and if you were able to sort of aggregate those cases back together, you could learn a lot. And I think that you would unlock a lot of cost savings, and I think that as much as we like to talk about, having brain chips implanted and, plugging into corporate networks, I really don't think that AI is something to be scared about in the law. It's not there to replace lawyers. It's really just to help make them more effective, especially on some of those more repetitive tasks.
Yeah, agreed. Although I'm still really super amped about learning how to fly an Apache helicopter in 30 seconds or less. So I think that's it for us today. Karl, thank you for joining us. Thank the 3 or 4 people that have tuned in to listen to this. Mom, hi. And their next episode will be entitled The Truth Behind Data Reuse. So stay tuned for that. Guys, great time. Thanks.